In the annals of human history, few monarchs have etched their name with such profound depth and enduring influence as Queen Victoria. For an astonishing 63 years and 7 months, her reign wasn't merely a segment of British history, it was an entire era, the complex, magnificent, and often contradictory Victorian age. A period defined by unprecedented industrial growth, vast imperial expansion, and huge social upheaval that reshaped nations and ignited global conversations and conflicts. But who was the woman behind the crown? How did a young, sheltered girl thrust onto the world's most powerful throne come to personify an age and leave an indelible mark on the very fabric of the modern world? Hello, I am History with Amy and prepare to journey into the heart of the Victorian era through the life of its most iconic figure, Queen Victoria. Born Alexandrina Victoria on the 24th of May 1819 at Kensington Palace, Queen Victoria's path to the throne was anything but preordained. She was, in fact, an unlikely heir. Her father, Edward, the Duke of Kent, the full son of King George III and Queen Charlotte, died when she was barely 8 months old. This tragic event, combined with a series of subsequent deaths among her elder uncles in the line of succession, including the premature passing of her cousin Princess Charlotte, the popular heir apparent, dramatically cleared Victoria's path to the crown. Victoria's early life was spent under the incredibly strict supervision of her mother, the Duchess of Kent, and her comptroller, Sir John Conroy. This restrictive environment, known as the Kensington system, was designed to keep Victoria dependent and compliant, isolating her from other children and even many members of her own family. Under this regime, Victoria was never allowed to be alone, had limited social interactions, and followed a rigid daily schedule that included closely monitored lessons and religious instruction. Her movements were tightly restricted. Even simple acts like walking down the stairs required supervision, and she had to wait until a maid or a member of her family was willing to take her hand to take her down those stairs. Conroy and her mother also tried to manipulate her personal relationships to strengthen their own influence over her. Victoria obviously deeply resented this system, and she came to hate Conroy. Victoria later claimed that she felt lonely and oppressed during her Kensington Palace childhood, and no wonder. But she did enjoy the companionship of her beloved governess, Baroness Leyson. Together, they often made costumes for Victoria's collection of dolls, and she was able to get lots of support from this lady. Her other great ally was her beloved little dog called Dash, who you can see in this painting. She would sometimes even dress him up in a pair of little trousers, although I'm not sure how much he enjoyed that. It has been suggested by modern historians, however, that Victoria may have misremembered her childhood, because in other instances she was almost spoiled with gifts and affection. Victoria herself admitted that she had been spoiled and, quote, very much indulged by everyone. She regularly enjoyed trips to the seaside, museums, the theatre, and ballet. But then, after years of a sheltered childhood, on the morning of June the 20th, 1837, everything changed. She was just 18 years old when her uncle, King William IV, died aged 71. The Archbishop of Canterbury and the Lord Chamberlain arrived at Kensington Palace to deliver the momentous news. Victoria was roused from her sleep and she received them in her dressing gown, demonstrating a remarkable composure for her age. In her journal, she later wrote, "Since it has pleased Providence to place me in this station, I shall do my utmost to fulfil my duty towards my country. I am very young and perhaps in many, though not in all things, inexperienced. But I am sure that very few have more real goodwill and more real desire to do what is fit and right than I have." Her first act as queen was symbolic and telling. She immediately ordered her bed to be removed from her mother's room, a definitive break from the controlling upbringing she had endured. She also immediately dismissed the hated Conroy from her service. After the initial shock and the immediate assertion of her newfound independence, the young queen's next great public moment was with her coronation. It was not just a formality, it was the carefully orchestrated spectacle designed to solidify the legitimacy and majesty of the monarchy in the eyes of the nation and to the world. On June 28th, 1838, barely a year after she had come to the throne, London erupted in a symphony of cheers and celebration. Thousands lined the streets, eager to catch a glimpse of their new queen. The procession itself was a dazzling display of British pomp and ceremony. Carriages, yeomen of the guard, and detachments of cavalry snaking their way through a jubilant populace from Buckingham Palace to Westminster Abbey. Despite the pouring rain in the days leading up to the coronation, the sun thankfully broke through on the day itself, a perceived good omen for the new young monarch. Inside the hallowed walls of Westminster Abbey, the ceremony unfolded over 5 hours, a marathon of ancient rituals and symbolic gestures. Victoria, still just 19 years old, approached it with a mix of eagerness and youthful apprehension. She later confided in her journal about the incredible weight of the crown and orb and the challenges of navigating the complex choreography. She wrote of the sceptre being placed awkwardly in her left hand and the Archbishop of Canterbury fumbling with the coronation ring, forcing it onto the wrong finger, causing her considerable pain. These small human moments, far from detracting, perhaps endeared her even more to the public, who saw her as both a queen and a relatable young woman. The highlight, of course, was the moment the ancient St. Edward's crown was placed upon her head, amidst shouts of "God save the Queen" and the pealing of bells across the city. The coronation was a powerful public declaration, not just of her being queen, but of the continuity and enduring power of the British monarchy, even in a rapidly changing world. It firmly introduced the young queen to her people, setting the stage for the remarkable era that would bear her name. In the early years of her reign, the young queen found herself navigating the treacherous waters of court politics and governmental complexities. She initially relied heavily on the counsel of her Whig Prime Minister, the charismatic Lord Melbourne, who served as a crucial mentor. With Melbourne's mentorship, Victoria sailed through her first year as queen. However, during her second year, her youth and immaturity caused a scandal that temporarily damaged her reputation. This scandal is often called the Flora Hastings affair. Lady Flora Hastings, a lady-in-waiting to Victoria's mother, was suspected of being pregnant outside of wedlock, an accusation fuelled by Victoria's dislike of Lady Flora and her association with Sir John Conroy, who Victoria still hated. When Lady Flora developed a swollen abdomen, rumours of pregnancy circulated, and Victoria believed them without evidence. A medical examination later revealed, though, that Lady Flora was suffering from a fatal liver tumour and not pregnancy. She died in July of that year, and the public reacted with outrage over the way she had been treated. Many viewed Victoria as having acted cruelly and hastily, which tarnished her reputation and highlighted the lingering influence of court factions from her troubled upbringing under the Kensington system. Luckily, Victoria managed to weather this storm, and she learnt a valuable lesson in the process. And soon, everyone turned their attention to Victoria's future marriage. Who would she marry? Victoria had first met her German first cousin, Prince Albert of Saxe-Coburg, in 1836, when he and his brother Ernest visited Kensington Palace with their uncle, Leopold I, King of the Belgians. Their families had planned a union almost from birth, and when the couple met again in 1839, Victoria decided that she was ready to marry this handsome young prince. Victoria was utterly smitten with Albert's intellect, integrity, and handsome good looks. As protocol demanded, Victoria proposed on the 15th of October, 1839. When Albert accepted, the couple embraced, and the Queen was overcome with joy. "Oh, how I adore and love him, I cannot say," she wrote in her diary. Their wedding on the 10th of February 1840 was a landmark event. Victoria chose a white dress of Spitalfield silk and Honiton lace, a revolutionary departure from the colourful jewel dresses typically worn by royal brides. In doing so, she inadvertently set a fashion trend that endures to this day, making the white wedding dress an iconic symbol of purity and romance. Together, Victoria and Albert became the very embodiment of Victorian domesticity and moral goodness. Nonetheless, not everything was perfect, and they often had blazing rows, particularly centering around their roles and responsibilities within the marriage. Albert was no different from many men of his age, who assumed that a man would take the dominant role in a marriage. But as Victoria was queen, this did not fit easily with her sense of status and identity. The Queen's first pregnancy in 1840, however, helped to ease the situation. When she was not feeling well enough, Albert read her daily government dispatches to her. And as her pregnancy progressed, they placed their desks side by side at Buckingham Palace so that they could work together. Gradually, Albert assumed more control, becoming in effect Victoria's private secretary. Prince Albert was far more than just a royal consort. He became Victoria's indispensable partner and chief advisor, a force behind many of the era's most significant advancements. He championed science, industry, education, and the arts, bringing a progressive spirit to the monarchy. Their private residences, Osborne House on the Isle of Wight and Balmoral Castle in Scotland, became cherished havens for their growing family, testament to their deep bond. The couple were to have 9 children in total, with their first born in 1840 called Victoria, known as Vicky. She was followed by Albert Edward, who was later Edward VII, then Alice, Alfred, Helena, Louise, Arthur, Leopold, and Beatrice in 1857. As parents, Victoria and Albert shared an interest in raising and educating their 9 children and presented a happy family image to the world. Unlike many aristocratic and royal fathers of the period, Albert enjoyed playing with his children and spent a lot of time with them. He is so kind to them, Victoria wrote, and romps with them delightfully. This idyllic partnership, however, was tragically cut short. In December of 1861, Albert died at the shockingly young age of just 42. Many think from typhoid fever, though Victoria herself was convinced it was from the strain of his eldest son's reckless behaviour. His death would plunge the Queen into an abyss of grief from which she never truly recovered. Albert's death left Victoria utterly devastated. The depth of her grief was absolute. She entered a prolonged period of intense mourning, donning black attire for the rest of her life and largely withdrawing from public appearances. She became known colloquially as the Widow of Windsor, a reclusive figure shrouded in sorrow. This prolonged seclusion, while deeply personal, sparked considerable debate and even a brief resurgence of Republican sentiment, as many thought that the Queen was neglecting her duties. Parliament debated her absence, and cartoonists depicted her as a shrouded phantom. Yet, despite her personal grief, Victoria never truly abandoned her responsibilities. She maintained a huge correspondence with her ministers, she remained keenly aware of political developments, and she continued to sign official documents with great diligence. Slowly, gradually, and encouraged by her family and advisers, she began to resume some public engagements, understanding the symbolic importance of the monarch's presence. Victoria never remarried, but she did have significant male favourites during her widowhood. A significant and often controversial figure in her later life was John Brown, a loyal Scottish personal attendant from Balmoral. Their unusually close companionship provided Victoria with immense comfort, support, and stability, sparking widespread speculation and even scurrilous rumours about the nature of their relationship. Despite the gossip, Brown remained a devoted and trusted confidant until his death. Another was Abdul Karim. In 1887, Victoria again angered the court by making a close favourite of her personal servant from India, Abdul Karim. As with John Brown, Karim attracted jealousy and prejudice, but Victoria did not listen to what people said, and she went on in her own way. Abdul Karim's job as munshi, meaning teacher, was to teach her the language of Urdu, in which she became fluent, and her notes from this era still survive. It was during Victoria's reign that the British Empire reached its staggering, unprecedented zenith, truly becoming an empire on which the sun never set. Its territorial reach was vast, covering approximately a quarter of the world's land area and governing a fifth of its population. From the vast dominions of Canada and Australia to the jewel in the crown, India, and across swathes of Africa, Asia, and the Caribbean, British influence extended its formidable reach and across every continent. Victoria was a fervent supporter of the empire, believing firmly in its benevolent mission to civilise, Christianise, and uplift what she and many of her contemporaries viewed as less developed nations. She saw it as Britain's moral duty and a force for progress. While the prevailing narrative of the era emphasised progress, trade, and the spread of British values, it is crucial to acknowledge the complex, often brutal realities of colonial rule, including economic exploitation, cultural suppression, and violent suppression of resistance, which are now being rigorously re-evaluated and critiqued by contemporary historians. The Queen's Jubilees, particularly her Golden Jubilee in 1887 and her Diamond in 1897, became spectacular, meticulously orchestrated celebrations of imperial power, showcasing vast diversity and impressive reach of her dominion to an awe-struck world. Beyond the grand imperial narrative, Victoria's reign was a period of astonishing transformation within Britain itself. The Industrial Revolution, which had begun in the previous century, accelerated dramatically, fundamentally reshaping the landscape and the very fabric of society. Railways, the arteries of the new industrial age, crisscrossed the country with unprecedented speed, revolutioning transport and commerce. Steamships slashed international travel times, and the invention of the electric telegraph in the 1830s, followed by the laying of transatlantic cables, instantly connected distant corners of the globe, shrinking distances and forever changing communication, trade, and even warfare. Victoria's lengthy reign was absolutely crucial in the profound evolution of the British monarchy itself. While she undoubtedly wielded significant personal influence, particularly through her exhaustive private correspondence with her prime ministers, the very idea of the monarch as an active political power was gradually shifting. The prevailing constitutional theory was moving towards the more modern concept of a largely symbolic, unifying constitutional monarch, a figurehead positioned above the partisan fray of political parties. Despite this evolving role, though, Victoria was far from a passive observer or mere figurehead. She possessed strong opinions, a formidable will, and was not afraid to express them, sometimes quite forcefully to her ministers. Her preferences and prejudices could and often did sway political decisions and appointments behind the scenes. This intricate dance between Crown and Parliament, between personal influence and constitutional restraint, highlights the delicate balance and formative nature of British politics during this period. The monarchy, under Victoria's steadfast hand, transformed her into a powerful unifying force for the nation and its vast empire, a role that, albeit further refined, largely continues to this day. Victoria's extensive network of children and grandchildren, strategically married into virtually every major royal house across Europe, earned her the enduring moniker, the Grandmother of Europe. Her descendants populated the thrones of Germany, Russia, Greece, Spain, Romania, and Norway, among others. This intricate and often incestuous web of familial and political connections created a complex tapestry of alliances and rivalries that would have profound and ultimately tragic implications for the continent's future, particularly leading up to the First World War. On January the 22nd, 1901, after an unprecedented reign spanning 63 years and 7 months, Queen Victoria died peacefully at Osborne House on the Isle of Wight. She was 81 years old. Her death marked not just the end of a life, but the definitive end of an entire era. Her funeral was a grand, solemn spectacle, a national outpouring of grief and respect that reflected the immense admiration and reverence she had garnered over her remarkably long and influential reign. The procession, in keeping with her wishes, was largely military, befitting a daughter of a soldier and the head of a mighty empire. Queen Victoria's legacy is immense, complex, and continues to resonate deeply in 21st century. She presided over an age of unparalleled change, leaving behind a Britain and a world vastly different from the one she had inherited. Her personal life, marked by great love, devastating loss, and unwavering resilience, captivated her subjects, and forged an enduring bond with the nation. She was not merely a queen, she was a symbol, an icon, a living embodiment of an age, and truly the defining figure of an extraordinary era in human history. Thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed this, please do like, comment, and subscribe. And of course, in the comments, please let me know, who shall I look at next? I'm always looking for suggestions.